I appreciate y'all taking the time to talk about Godzilla vs. Kong. Movie is a blast. I got to come to the set and see y'all in action. It was super cool. One of the last set visits I got to go on for now. I saw y'all had a super dope handshake at the time. I'm curious. I'm sure maybe this has come up. Have you guys mastered it over Zoom yet?
I forgot. I completely forgot about that. Oh my gosh. Did I? No, I didn't. I didn't forget about that handshake. I guess when we can meet safely in real life, I guess we'll have to do it. I totally remember it.
It was dun 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 dun. Swimming fish, flying dove. It's raining. It's pouring. The old man is snoring. Let's get married. That's it. That's all I remember. I don't know why we wanted to add a dance move in there. So we were like, let's get married. And then can I get a hell yeah 3 times? Hell yeah, hell yeah, hell yeah.
It's all coming back now. It's all coming back, right, Julian?
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Julian, actually, I have a fun question for you. Both of your characters actually go on a journey in this movie fueled by conspiracy theories. And in today's world, listen, I've spent the past year just bored at home reading a bunch of these, and some of them are hilarious. I want to hear what you think. Have you heard any kind of just wild conspiracy theories that you got an absolute laugh out of after being a part of this movie?
Oh yeah, there's some crazy people in the world, and all the 5G towers. Like there's people in New Zealand burning down phone towers. I've heard crazy conspiracy theories that COVID is from aliens. I've just heard a bunch. There's some crazy people in the world, and I'm just like, hey man, you do you, but you stay 10 feet away instead of 6. So.
Yeah, keep a little extra distance between us. That's okay. Earth is not flat. We're gonna, we'll all realize that one day. Millie, I got to see you guys kind of the scenes you were shooting. You guys all kind of were laughing at each other's jokes, and I think maybe doing some improv. I'd love to hear what it was like to work with Julian and Brian, and if you think there's a whole just montage of improv that didn't even get to make the movie.
I know a lot of our improv didn't make the movie. I think a few of our scenes, Julian, we did a lot, didn't we? I feel like we filmed a lot. But our improv was just, it's so natural. We were just throwing in stuff for Adam here and there. I think he had so much to work with. Working with Julian and Brian was great. I'm working with 2 great men who are very supportive and encouraged me, which was really nice. And they're also very funny. So it's never a dull moment. I'm very strong-willed, and so that I guess they all realized that when I would come onto set and be one day super moody and the next day super happy. Julian, you know this.
I do love
teenage girl.
Listen, that doesn't stop your character from becoming the leader of the pack in a lot of ways. You really, the attitude comes through in a great way. Your character is running the show there.
Yes. Yeah. I think I don't know. I just kind of took them and was like, right, you're coming with me. Let's go on this adventure.
I love that. Also, I want to ask you, at Comicbook.com, we end up reading these things all the time. I swear once a week you're cast in a different Marvel or DC movie that, I don't even know if you keep up with that stuff, but I do have to ask, Julian's a Marvel alum. Have you ever had a conversation about joining one of these superhero worlds?
I join many conversations. I would only do something that feels right to me. So when that comes along, then we'll talk about it.
I do want to ask, we were talking about this in the lobby before I came. People were debating who would be stronger between Eleven and Grogu in a strength off without having to touch. I feel like you just answered the question.
I did.
I would love to hear from you because you're no stranger to being on sets and being in films where I know you really have to drum up some imagination to see creatures or animals or monsters around you. So, on Godzilla vs. Kong, how did that compare to have to see these skyscraping monsters versus something like Tarzan, where it's the animals beside you and stuff like that?
It's very different. On Tarzan, they're mostly eye level. It's interacting with apes or lions, or it's kind of more intimate. When you have a creature the size of a skyscraper, who also, by the way, rarely looks at us, like, because they're busy doing other things. It's more observing than interacting with. But because of that, when you do have these moments where you're actually connecting to Kong or Godzilla, they are crucial, because you got to tie the Titans to the human character somehow, so it's not two completely separate movies. So it was very important to map out those and find those beats in the movie where you have that connection. And in our case, on Team Kong, the characters that follow him, a lot of that is through Gia, Kaylee's character, the young girl who is teaching Kong sign language, because she's the only one he's comfortable around and communicates with and has a connection to. So a lot of the moments where we're, at least in the first half of the movie, reacting or communicating with Kong is basically through observing Gia, who's with us, doing all the communication. So it's a lot of observing, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds pretty wild though. Like the imagination you have to pull off while also acting. It's very impressive stuff. I'm also real curious. I mean, you have family. Your father's in the Marvel universe. You've worked on movies like this with people who are part of different franchises. You are a part of big franchises. I'm so curious, when all of you get together and you interact with people who are part of different things, and you're a part of different things like this, does anybody ever slip and tell you a spoiler? What's the worst kind of thing you heard about a movie before it came out from somebody you were working with? Or have you ever slipped and shared like who won the fight with somebody?
Now, the only spoiler I got from Dad and the Marvel universe was that he was going to be naked. And that's all I got. I had no idea like how and why and in what like setting, and is it a love scene or what? And but no, I just knew that he was going to be naked, and so it was a bit of a surprise when I saw that he was running around Stonehenge in England butt naked. Very memorable experience. I loved it. That
must make for some good Thanksgiving dinners.
It's extraordinary.
I love that. Hey, listen, I don't know how in tune you are with like what's in the news and stuff like that, but I mean, it seems like every week or at least a few times a year, you are fan cast in a Marvel movie or a DC movie, and sometimes it's a report, sometimes it's the fans saying it. When you see stuff like that, like, do you ever feel inclined to be like, hey guys, that's just not true? Or is some of it true? Like, how does that all feel like on your end of it? What is that experience like?
I don't have much experience of that, because I try to stay away from fan forums, and I never like make the mistake of Googling my name or reading stuff about myself, because I feel like if I go down that rabbit hole, it's not going to end well. Even if it's like positive complimentary stuff, I think the negative stuff is what's going to stick here, and I'm scared to do that. I'd rather stay away from all that.
Yeah, it could be 100 nice things. You remember the one negative. I'll never Twitter search my name again. Listen,
oh, no.
I'm a huge fan. The movie's a blast. Thank you so much for the time. I can't wait for everybody to see this. I hope they see it on a big screen, because it was so much fun.
Well, it deserves to be seen on a big screen for sure.
So I had an absolute blast watching this movie, and I can only imagine making it was probably as much fun as watching it was. I am so curious because you got to be on some really cool sets, and I want to start with the Skull Island stuff, because I know the Kong Skull Island movie went out to Hawaii and shot some cool stuff. You're in a containment center. Was there like a fully built set? Was there like, what was it like to kind of realize this jungle environment?
It was a little bit of both, because it's there has to be the contained bits and then the jungly bit. So we had some sets, and then we also got to go to Hawaii, which for me was pretty. I wanted that to happen.
Did they still have there was like a giant, I think it was like a King Kong skull that was set up in the Kualoa Ranch down there. Did they still have it? Did you get to see any of that stuff?
No, I didn't. I don't know what you're talking about. There was a skull set up no, I didn't see that.
Oh yeah, I went down there for Jumanji. I saw like a giant skull that they used from Skull Island down there.
We must have been in a different area or something. I didn't know.
Maybe
Yeah.
they really put you through it in this movie, and specifically the first big showdown between Kong and Godzilla is on that aircraft carrier fight sequence, which looked amazing. But you get locked in a room and there's water pouring in. I mean, I would love to hear about that experience on the set. How long were you in there just getting drenched?
Funny thing about movies, everyone thinks it's made up, but often they just make you do it. And like, so when it says that the water's coming in and I'm in this elevator and I'm trying to open the door, I mean, how are we going to do that? Oh, you're just going to get in the elevator and we're going to pour the water in and then you're going to get out. Okay. I mean, obviously they take some safety precautions, one hopes, but it's much more real than I thought it was going to be. I was pretty alarmed, but I felt good about it afterwards. I mean, it was challenging.
I'm sure it helps sell the performance at least a little bit when you're really in it. You know what I mean? Yeah. Also, your character is one of few characters who is involved in communication with Kong. Mm-hmm. I would like what goes into like. Did you learn sign language for this fully? And did you get to kind of communicate with anything when there was supposed to be a giant monkey right in front of you?
Yeah, well, Kaylee, who plays Gia, she's deaf and she signs, and her family were there with her, and she, they all communicate with sign language, and they were my teachers and my coaches, all of them. And I spent all of my time on and off set with them. So they were all not only helping me learn the scenes, which I had no foundation in ASL. I didn't know anything, and I felt so profoundly ignorant. I think everyone in the hearing world thinks that sign is all about your fingers and your hand gestures, and it's not. Actually, 70% of it is what's going on in your face. So you tend to turn into like the worst actor when you were learning sign, because you're just doing this, like this. And I remember Kaylee's father would just look at me and say, I have no idea what you're talking about. Like, I can't see anything happening here. And I'd be like, okay, I'm an actor. I can do this.
Wow.
It was fascinating and I loved it.
I love that got incorporated. I know that a lot of people are going to really enjoy having that incorporated in this film. My last thing for you, as you can see, big Marvel fan. You're a part of. There goes my Captain America. You're a part of one of my favorite films, Iron Man 3, and you're also part of one of the big twists of that movie. And I'm curious, as those films have grown and become such big, everybody's out for answers about those questions before they even come out. Back then, did they give you everything up front, or do you think it's become more secretive over time? What was the experience like? That was almost 10 years ago now.
Was it really?
I guess 7 years ago.
Yeah, no, you're right. It was all very secretive then as well. Nobody knew anything. I wasn't allowed to read the script when I got offered the part. And I remember actually I kicked up an enormous fuss about it, because I was like, that's not how any actor can work. I'd like to know what the part is before I say yes. Please, can you? And so they were like, begrudgingly, they let me read it, but with someone standing in the room and all this kind of thing. So it was very like hush hush. I guess because there's a lot that can happen between never a slip between cup and lip, and lots of things change. So they don't want people. Things did change.